Talk Radio Network, and thank you for joining us. We've got a great show for you this afternoon. This is a rebroadcast of Legacy, Building Your Legacy. Thank you for joining us. Remember, ITRNradio.com. This is Legacy, a rebroadcast. Legacy Mortgage, Nefta Wray, Ryan Hall, and Tamika Peterkins are your guests on this afternoon. Thank you for joining us. Have a great show, great listening, and remember, you can join us live starting next week. On Sunday, 682-710-1101. Here we go with the show. Thank you. And you are listening to Intentional Talk Radio Network, and it is time for T. Todd Simon, Regional Manager with Legacy Home Loans there in South Carolina. It is time to close the gap with Legacy Home Loans. Take it away, T. Todd Simon. Glad to have you with us.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's always a pleasure to be here. Great to see you today. And welcome for another installment of Reclaiming the Legacy here with Legacy Home Loans. And today is a special edition episode because we want to talk about the state of the housing market. And so what I want to do is I have a few esteemed panelists, people that I have worked with in the trenches here with Legacy Home Loans, and they are across the country in various markets. So what I want to do is first go ahead and open it up, let them introduce themselves, and then we'll jump right into the dialogue. So we got to start with our queen, Miss Tamika Peterkins. Can you go ahead and tell the people that are checking in your name, how long you've been in the business, and what market you're in?
Hey, thank you, T. Todd Simon. Thank you for having me. It's so great to be here with everyone. I am Tamika Peterkins, loan officer in Jacksonville, Florida. I am licensed in 6 states, Florida, Georgia, California, Minnesota, Tennessee, and Virginia. And I am here to help close the gap.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Tamika. My brother, Ryan, can you give us a little bit of background in what market you serve?
Hey, Todd. Yes, I'm Ryan Hall, and I serve the California area, Los Angeles mainly. And I've been in the business for about 5 years.
All right. All right. And my partner here in the Carolinas, Mr. Wray. Can you introduce yourself, brother, and give us a few words?
Yeah, sure. Wray here, branch manager. I'm located in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I'm in about 19 or 20 states. So if you're watching this, just go ahead and this shoulder, download the barcode right there. It's too many to list. I've been in the business 22 years. Yeah. So 22 years. So when you think about that amount of time between these 3 esteemed panelists, you're talking about almost 40 years of experience, if not more, when it comes to helping people get into homes. So what I want to do is just jump right into it. So, a lot of questions that we wind up having right now are in and around, is this the time to buy? Interest rates are a little bit crazy. Buyer confidence is not all of that high right now. Mortgage applications are down. The great part is that is not anything that we're dealing with right now here at Legacy Home Loans. But when we talk about the market as a whole, right now, I think consumer confidence is at an all-time low. But we know in our experience that it's a cycle. And so in Jacksonville, are these some of the same questions that you're getting in Jacksonville, Tamika, about should they wait, how they feel? Are these some of the things in the conversations that you're having in that market?
It most certainly is. 100% is what I'm having. Okay. However, the beautiful thing is here at Legacy, because we talk to our borrowers, we educate them, they be ready. They are ready to purchase. Is it a good time to buy? Absolutely.
Oh, great. And, with you being out in California, Ryan, I know house prices are a lot different out in that market than they are maybe on, let's say, the East Coast and various other markets, even on the West Coast. Purchase prices are a little bit higher.
So are those some of the same questions that you're having in your market as well from your buyers?
Absolutely, man. And think about California, no matter if you're renting or you're buying a home, you're paying a little bit more than everybody anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So I always explain that, the best thing to do is get your foot in the door, purchase now. We try to predict the market, but we don't know what tomorrow brings. So we have to make sure that we're getting our best foot forward and making that effort now.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Ryan. Nefta, same question to you in the Charlotte, North Carolina area. Is that kind of the same consensus that you've been hearing about some of the things that people may be just a tad bit afraid right now?
Yeah, absolutely. Essentially everyone's focused on, because there's been such a spike in rates, right, from the last 2 years. It's more of like a fear saying, man, I should wait till rates come down. But basically any time to get into the real estate game is the right time, regardless of technically where the rates are, right? So to just touch on it real quickly, and this is something that was probably floating around a couple of days now, or comparison, right? In the 70s, rates were at like 9.5 on the average, right? In the 80s, they were like 12.7. The 90s was 8 and was at 8.12, call it 8.25. 2000s, we were at 6.5. In 2010s, we were at like 4%, 4.125. In the 2020s, we're at average at 3, right? And now, and today, we're somewhere 6.9, call it 7%. All right. So, and these are averages that they probably use when they take this average of someone having, maybe a 740 FICO score, putting 20% down, purchasing a primary single family home, right? Because there are overlays when you start purchasing condos and so forth. So if you look at this, it has really still been a historically low point as far as rates being where they are even right now, right? The one thing we've seen rates go up, we've seen them come down. I've never seen house prices go back down to what they cost in the 70s. They consistently go up, even if we had a potential market dip or a crash. So if you want to get in the game, you have to be in the game in order to play it. And building sustainable wealth, or starting that, we know that the majority of wealth comes from real estate, with pretty much the most successful people that we know. So at any point, you essentially have to make the decision to figure out, hey, what can I afford, right? It may look like, hey, you may want a 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom house right now, but because of where rates are and price is actually a little higher, maybe now you have to get a 3-bedroom if that works for your family, but at least you're in the game and you're starting to build equity. So I always advise and talk about your comfortability level as far as what you're going to pay. As long as we can get you approved, and if that works for you, then definitely pull the trigger and actually start the process right now.
Absolutely, man. You made a great point, Nefta, when you talked about the historical reference through the 80s, the 90s, the early 2000s, 2010. And basically that was almost a 10-year cycle that you gave a snapshot in when you talked about the interest rates. And, in some of those situations, we're talking double digits back in those days, right? And right now we're close to 7. They're forecasting that they may even go up a little bit more, but right now is still the time to buy, right? A lot of conversations that I have with a lot of the clients are in and around, basically, if you look at the mass migration, when people are going this way, millionaires are made going that way, right? And so they are actually taking that opportunity to buy up and purchase this real estate right now, because guess what? The interest rates will come down. The equity is going to continue to appreciate and grow. And then now I can actually refinance to get a lower rate. And then when everybody's ready to then buy, now I have a lot of inventory that now I can either rent, sell, and then now I can realize that capital gain. So that was a very good point that you brought up, Nefta. With rental prices, Ryan, you touched on the fact that out in the California market, the rental rates are just historically high. And so when you are having a conversation with the client, what type of, advice do you give them about getting started right now versus continuing to try to rent?
I just tell them, what you think about it. When you're renting a home, you're paying a mortgage. And a lot of times you're paying a little bit more than the actual mortgage, so that they can, possibly make a profit or something on their investment. So, I usually let them know that you can either pay someone else's mortgage, or you can pay your own. You can build your own wealth, or you can build someone else, you know. So, you know, I once I get the, you know, into that, you know, part of the conversation, they're usually like, yes, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to, you know, make sure that I'm setting myself up for my future. So, yeah.
Right. And that's a really good point. It actually brought back a quote that I love from Wray that says, build your own dreams or someone will hire you to build theirs. And
Right,
so,
right.
yeah, it's that same context. Like you're going to pay something, right?
Yeah.
You're going to pay shelter. That's one of the primary, you know, pillars of just sustainability, right? Just life. You're going to have to pay to have a roof over your head, you know, clothes on your back, food in the refrigerator. So if you're paying something anyway, why not be paying or making your dollars go and stretch further by investing in something that you can then either inherit, leave if something happens to you, or if you have to scale up once you get to a better place, now you've created a residual stream of income.
Right.
And, you know, when we talk about things like Airbnb, other rental type companies, like you have companies that will take over the responsibility of renting. If you're kind of a little gun shy about being a landlord, you have companies that can tap in to actually do that for you and collect the rent. And now you have your net profit right there. So in Jacksonville, Tamika, do you see a lot of the clients, repeat clients that you've had having conversations with you about possibly refining in this environment and tapping into the equity that they've built over the past several years?
I most certainly do. One thing with myself and us at Legacy, we really educate our borrowers, and we help educate our borrowers to leave a legacy. So in that education, we teach and we help strategize, and we let them know that purchasing a home is a long-term investment. So we have to pivot when the market pivots. So when we're working with our clients and we're getting them ready, we're going through credit, going through savings, we're also educating them, getting them ready. So now is the time to purchase. They're ready. Yes, let's go. I am definitely having those conversations, especially strategizing, you know, educating, letting them know by purchasing now and doing these steps, you can get to that Airbnb. You know, you can get to those rental properties, several rental properties, multi-unit properties, but it all starts now, and it starts with being educated, having those conversations, and really just getting in the trenches and understanding what's going on. And that's what I do, and I know that's what we all do.
Absolutely. That was such a phenomenal point that you brought up at the very tail end when you talked about multifamilies.
Yes.
Right. And, you know, what we've seen, and if you're digesting any type of content online, they're talking and saying like, hey, the house hack is to attempt to try to, if this is your first purchase, maybe looking at buying a multifamily so that way you can rent out one side. And if the rent is good enough, now it just paid for the whole unit, and it allowed you to build equity and allow somebody else to pay that rent. So those are just strategies and things that we leverage and have conversations about as a trusted advisor. Because if we think about it, you know, that's really what we are. We have to wear multiple hats, you know, in most cases. And so I see our brother David Grimble tapping in. I want to kind of pump it over to you really quick, David, if you can. Can you tell us your name, the market you serve, and also how long you've been in the mortgage business?
Awesome. Good morning or afternoon, everybody. Good evening, wherever everybody might be. My name is David Grimble, Legacy Home Loan Officer and Branch Manager. I am boots on the ground in Washington, D.C., but I service 15 states. So the DMV area, D.C., Maryland, Virginia. I'm from South Carolina originally. Shout out Columbia. So I service South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, and Florida as well. Texas, Minnesota, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Arizona, Nevada, and California. So those are all the areas I service. And I won't talk too long. I know I came in late, so my apologies. I had some technical difficulties and had to relocate. So, but yeah, that's me. Been in the game for about 15 years total. On the loan side, about 5. and loving every minute that I've been here with Legacy. So I just definitely wanted to come in, tap in with my brother Todd. It's great to see everybody here, and yeah, I'm willing to help out any way possible.
All right, thank you so much, man. And you took a lot of time naming out the states, so I'm glad that you took your time and made sure that everybody that's tuning in across the country knows exactly the states that you cover, right? We kind of did a brief overview. Hey, I'm licensed in 5 states, 6 states, 2 states. You listed each state, brother. So that's salesman 101. So you
and in fact, I'm gonna be smart like my sister Tamika and everybody else here. Put my little barcode in the corner.
Please do. So the people need to tap in with you. They can actually scan your barcode, and then they'll know how to actually reach in to you. So that's great. And actually where we were going with the conversation, and this is really, I know in that DC area, with you being boots on the ground, I know there are a lot of multifamily properties in that area, sometimes a little more than other states. So I know that you may have a lot of clients that you may have to advise on how to leverage something like a multifamily. Can you give us a little insight on the type of conversation you would have in advising a client how to possibly leverage something like a multifamily as a first-time purchase?
Yeah, absolutely. There's of course a lot of different ways. Of course, we do residential loans up to 4 units. So anything up to 4 units, we can do a residential loan for. And there's a couple of different ways to do it. The easiest, I guess the best way to do it would be just 20% down, buy the entire property and rent them off day one. But a more strategic way, if you want to reduce your upfront investment, is to occupy one of the units. So if you occupy one of the units, you're able to take advantage of FHA's minimum 3.5% down. And with that, you're able to reduce your upfront investment. You get a bit lower of an interest rate and cost compared to conventional. And then also with those additional units, let's say you're buying a 4-plex. Those 3 additional units, 75% of either the market or actual rents can be used this additional income on your application to help you purchase that property. So that's a very popular strategy that a lot of investors use to purchase units.
Oh man, listen, I don't know if the listeners actually heard that, because I was expecting the chat to explode when you said that last comment. And I want to recap that just to make sure that I heard it right. And just in case some of our listeners missed that, you said in that scenario, if there was maybe a 4-unit building, that you could occupy 1 unit, and with the other 3 units, if they're occupied, or you can look at the median rent in that area, and you can claim up to 75% of that income to help you acquire the property. Is that what you meant?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
And that's
so it's almost like free money on your application.
Awesome. So that's used to help offset your debt to income ratio, I'm assuming.
Absolutely. It lets you buy more house. We all know that typically duplexes, triplexes, and quadruplexes usually have a little bit higher price points. So where a 1-unit property might be, say, around 200,000, a 2 or 3 or 4 unit property might range in the price point of around 3 to 4 or sometimes higher. So depending on where you are, those additional units with that estimated income can definitely help you out with purchasing that property.
Oh man, that was great information, David. I appreciate that. And as we transition over to Nefta, I'm going to ask him a little bit of a different question. I'll switch speeds, but before I do that, make sure you pull up your background with your barcode. So just in case listeners are on the playback, people can scan your barcode and make sure they know how to get in touch with you, David, because those are just some gems that you dropped, brother. So I appreciate it. So Nefta, I know that you deal a lot with self-employed borrowers and helping people that are self-employed understand how to purchase. Can you give us some insight in how you have or start the conversation with people that are self-employed in order to help them understand how to qualify for a mortgage?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the first thing is to ask them, do you write everything off? Because at the end of the day, the reality is that most self-employed borrowers do a lot of deductions and write-offs from running the business. to limit the amount of what they have to, at the end of the year, pay Uncle Sam, right? Unfortunately, that works negatively as a negative impact when you go to get approved specifically for a mortgage. So those are the conversations I have with them and go over their tax returns. Even in preparation, let's just say they're a year out, we talk about what your tax returns need to look like, whether you're, Schedule C person and we're looking at line 31, and then we can look at what the add backs we could do, or if you have, corporation where we're doing, K1, you're paying yourself a W-2, et cetera. And that flows over to your Schedule E on your tax returns. We take a look at the breakdown and what is the income that we can actually use instead of what you believe that you make or what you actually made. It's just what you claim on your taxes that we would allow from a guideline perspective for you to use. So, it's an in-depth education and look at their overall pro forma and kind of give them some advice on where to go, especially like if they're not ready right now.
Right. That was some free game. I actually want to circle back and make sure we slow down and unpack that. So it sounded like you basically said that if somebody is a Schedule C self-employed buyer, and did you say you go to line 31 for 2 years? Now, what happens when you look at line 31 for people that may be self-employed or may have self-employed buyers, maybe some realtors on the line or something like that? If they're talking and dealing with someone that may be self-employed, can you break down what line 31 does and how you calculate the monthly income from that?
That's in effect their net income for that year after all deductions. So after gross sales and everything they deduct from meals and entertainment, automobile, work in the office space, things that may come up that they specialize and list out on the following form. That's like their net income. So typically what you're looking at, they want you to have 2 years of self-employment, and you usually do a 24-month average, adding both of those numbers up and dividing by 24 to come up with what your gross monthly income is that we're going to use as your qualifying income towards your debt to income ratio. Now, there's some add backs you can do when it comes to like mileage, meals and entertainment, depreciation if you have it, and so forth. But usually there's not a lot that goes back to affect that number.
Okay. And man, I'm seeing the chat super quiet today. I don't know if some of you guys are with us or whether you're just writing this down so you don't have time to actually get and say anything in the chat. But I mean, right now, there are huge gems that are being dropped in and around how we help people qualify for mortgages in this environment. Now, also, when you talk about things that you can add back as far as, mileage, meals and entertainment, things like that, I think that's so huge for you to unpack that. So Tamika, same thing. Is that pretty much the process? I know you spoke a lot of in and around educating and how you talk with your clients from an educating standpoint. Is that one of the things that you unpack with helping them understand how maybe too much of the income has been written off and is not really funneling over in order for you to be able to qualify that as income, or that kind of the same conversation that you're having as well?
Yes, 100%. It's the same conversation I'm having. I'm speaking with my borrowers and really finding out what's the best route to go based on what they've done, and then based on their goals, where we can go for the next time. I have an investor that I'm working with right now that is actually purchasing a multi-unit. However, instead of going the regular conventional route, he's using the rental incomes from the other 3 units for qualification.
Oh, man. Oh,
so
wow.
We're not going to run into a debt to income ratio problem.
Okay. So he's taking advantage of what you're talking about in order to come back now and purchase something when before it didn't really work out for him. So depending on the type of property that he was able to use, he was able to come back and now qualify for it versus just using his pure income. Is that what you were saying?
That's exactly what I'm saying. That is exactly what I'm saying. It's a great alternative for those self-employed borrowers that write off a lot of things, and as Nefta said, unfortunately, it is a negative impact, when it comes, to purchasing. And we run into, different debt to income ratio issues. But we have alternative programs and we strategize to make sure that we have a product that you can work with. and then we educate you so how you can do better and maneuver going forward.
Awesome. That
Yeah.
is that's great. That's great right there. That's a success story. That's almost a mic drop, if you will, because you had a situation where the client could not necessarily purchase based off of their debt to income ratio and their just regular self-employed income.
Yeah.
But based on the house hack that they chose, they were able to then have more income that affected the bottom line for them to be able to qualify. I think that was just a really, really good gem to talk about. You know, and what I want to kind of just, you know, pivot to really quick is back to mortgage and actually rental rates right now. So, you know, Ryan, you talked a lot about the rental rates out in California. We talked about the rental rates in Jacksonville, also Charlotte, North Carolina, and how that's a little bit. But David, you were a little bit late to the party, so I got to pick on you here and get you to talk a little bit about DC, because from what I understand, DC is a pretty expensive place to try to survive. So can you talk about the conversations that you have in reference to helping the client understand how to leverage the fact that they're going to pay rent somewhere and how to take that same rent that you're paying and not make somebody else rich? Can you kind of talk about that in your market a little bit?
Well, it's really all really a mindset thing, really. Once that coin flips in your mind, it's easy math from there. So that is a popular kind of question or pushback that a lot of clients will have, especially in this market. It's a tough market right now. Like, it's not back to where it was prior to COVID. Prices are up, interest rates are up, so we kind of know what it is. But as far as kind of planning for the future, that's really what we are as mortgage lenders. We are really the one of the few true financial advisors a lot of people are going to sit down and talk to. So with that, you can kind of really advise people, okay, with regard to that, what's your biggest expense every month? Typically your housing expense. All right, cool. Interest rates are kind of high right now for homes. I definitely agree with that. They just went up a little bit just to shock everybody. Sorry, rates are going up a little bit. You'll see it in the news soon. But so right now we're definitely in the center, just to kind of put it on out. However, average rental rates typically go up depending where you live every year, 10 to 15%. So to kind of do that math and put on paper how much money you're putting into your housing expense, and then at the end of it say, okay, is that your investment or is that your somebody else's investment? If you own the property, it's yours. You'll be able to recoup that money back in your equity, refinance, sale, whatever the case may be. In renting, you're just going to have to keep paying that interest every single year. So while I hear most borrowers on that interest rate argument, I would think about how you pay the interest rate rather than what the interest rate is, because either way, you're paying an interest rate.
Okay, so yeah, we got to circle back. I need you to unpack that last point where you said think about how you're paying the interest rate versus the actual interest rate that you're paying. Can you unpack that?
So let's say if you go buy your property and you have a fixed interest rate of, let's say 7% today.
Okay.
Let's be aggressive and say 7.5. I'm gonna hurt your feelings, right? So 7.5, let's say it's 7.5%. But it's fixed, so it's going to stay 7.5% for the next 30 years unless you decide to sell or refinance prior to that time. And if we refinance, we're likely going to have a lower rate when rates are a little bit better. You can pull some cash out. That's the benefit of owning a home. However, rental rates are going to go up let's say 10% every year. So let's say your rent is $1,500. Add 10% on that at the end of this year. It's about to be December in a couple of months, Christmas coming around the corner. So let's add 10% on top of that. Then a year from now, 10% on top of that. A year now, 10% on top of that. And then 10, 15 years from now, add up that amount of money and it's not in your own investment. You'll never be able to recoup that back. You're still at square one figuring out how do I get into a property. So the better way to kind of think about the interest rate is, okay, do I want a fixed interest rate even though it's high right now? Or do I want to pay 10% on an annual basis for perpetuity. That's a more intelligent way to think about it.
I love it. I love it, man. That was a great way to break that down. I thank you for, giving that insight. The other part I want to kind of unpack, you said something about mindset. And I think that's so very important. So when we're talking about mindset, we know that we have to, in most cases, we have to wear a couple of different hats. We may have to be a counselor, a marriage counselor. We may have to stop and pray. We might have to do something that helps our people understand that, hey, we need to get off of the fence and we need to take this step. So when it comes to mindset, I want to go ahead and kick it over to Nefta real quick. When you are having a conversation with the client and it seems like it's more of a mindset thing, how honest are you with helping them understand that they can actually stop renting and actually take that step to purchase? Because I think when we look at the amount of people that rent, we know that there are so many people across the country that are mortgage ready, but don't think that they are. So how do you normally have that conversation with your clients when it comes to, maybe a mindset hold up or something along those lines?
If I can be frank, I'm brutally honest, actually.
Okay.
I don't necessarily believe in sugarcoating stuff and telling you what you want to hear.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to tell you what you need to hear, right? Okay. And then from that point, it's me as a professional, right, in the industry, then taking it step by step and looking at your overall profile. So we're going to look through your credit. We're going to get, dive deep. A lot of people are very guarded when it comes to that information, but the reality of it is this is probably one of the only things that you buy where the individuals at the other end, they get a real super deep look into everything about you financially. And if you also been doing this a long time and, have the expertise of being able to read a credit report, you can in essence get an idea or a general idea of someone's pattern and what their spending habits are, right? So now you can sit down and go, hey, let's have a frank conversation. Do you kind of overspend here in this scenario? You also get their bank statements, right? So you can see what those transactions are for the last 60 days, where they're spending the majority of their money, or do they really need to spend that money, right? And then you look at, hey, well, did you really need to get an $800 car note? How can we, particularly facilitate you or help you to get out of that? Maybe refinance or look to the future to say, hey, it's almost coming to an end. You don't want to do that again. You want the car or you want the house, right? So it's a real come to Jesus moment to say, listen, I know you want this house with the 5 bedrooms, but you can't afford that right now. And here's why. And, my ability to sit down and potentially explain something to someone in 4 or 5 different ways, I definitely do the qualifying aspect, understand, tell them to get it back to me, repeat it to me. If they do, great, we can move forward. If not, I could turn it around and let's work backwards, right? Especially a lot of misconception comes around debt to income ratio, right? When you talk about that for a mortgage, it's not necessarily the amount of outstanding debt you have. It's your monthly minimum required payment in order to meet and satisfied on your credit, right? And then what you're working on is, here's an easy way, a gem that you can work backwards for your debt to income ratio. On average, you probably want to use 45% for conventional. Let's go there, right? You could take your gross monthly income. So let's just say you have a salary of $100,000 per year. That's 8333.33, right? If you take 45% of that, and at that juncture, now you start subtracting what your monthly bills are that show up on your credit that you're obligated to pay. So you take away your car note, you take away your credit cards, you take away your, installment loans you may have. Mm-hmm. At that point, now you're ended up with, here's what you're left over for your mortgage has to fit in, which is your principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. So taking a step back with the client, have them say, grab a piece of pen and paper, or you're in front of a calculator. That's the more come to reality, oh yeah, you can't afford that. And I have a lot of clients that go, well, this bank told me I can do this. Well, let's look at the numbers. How do they tell you that you got here? Here's the number that you're looking for, right? Let's take average, you can find a mortgage calculator online, right? You walk them through it. You're putting down 5%. Okay, here's that number. Here's what you're left with. You're financing that over 30 years. Use today's interest rate. Here's what your principal and interest payment is. Okay, keep that number to the side at $2,000. Once you've subtracted everything from that 45% and now we're at $1,500, we need to find 2,000. Do you have it? No. So obviously you cannot afford that. That's the elusive number that they gave you. So it's just really sitting down, I think, and kind of giving people the guidance. My knowledge from being in the sales perspective and also being an underwriter and so forth, knowing guidelines allows me to explain that and give it to them. So now they have a level set of, okay, my mindset has to be changed on what I can afford. Now let's have a realistic point of what you can afford and what it takes to get there.
Before I say the next comment, if you guys are listening and you're with us and you just heard that breakdown and how we do things here at Legacy Home Loans, please drop something in the chat, a fire emoji, a praying hands, a clapping emoji, or something along that line. Please let us know what is going on here. Please talk to us. Because really, Nefta, I mean, you just did a masterclass in about 2 minutes in terms of how you can help somebody understand patterns, right? And bad spending habits and things of that nature. So you did a phenomenal job. But what I want to point out too as well is we understand how to actually engage and deal with our people. So that is what makes Legacy Home Loans a little bit different. I want to piggyback here and just get on the soapbox, because we'll have these type of conversations. And especially most of the time when we're talking to a client that you're having that conversation, the other part of that conversation is down payment assistance as well, right? And so when we're saying down payment assistance, it's a tool, but also let's look at the fact that you may have a Birkin bag, you may have a Gucci or Louis belt on, or you may have some Jordans, or you may have, all of this expensive designer apparel that does not really help you get to the end goal. And a lot of times when we start to look back through those bank statements, we can see, man, if you're door dashing 3 or 4 times a week, but here we can't talk about slowing down, getting on a plan to try to put your hands on a couple of grand. I think that really points back to a mindset. And I think a lot of times, not just with our people traditionally, but I think, we have a bigger problem with that sometimes. But I think the exposure and the conversation about this is where we are today, but that's not the end of the road. That's not the end of the story. You can actually take where we are today and let's look at how to leverage something that's going to actually help you become a home buyer, right? And things to think outside of the box, creative financing, things like that. So I appreciate you dropping in on that. So Tamika, same question. I want to kind of tap into how you have conversations, particularly as a female on our team, one of the queens on our team. How do you find it hard to engage with maybe, let's say, a female buyer that you may have to have a hard conversation with in terms of maybe spending patterns and things like that to help them understand how we need to maybe stop, get on a different type of plan to help you reach that goal? Can you unpack maybe a scenario where you've had to deal with something along those lines? Or
when I go through my initial consultation, one of the first things I find out with my customers, their goals and their why.
Okay.
So whenever there are hiccups or anything down the line in the loan process, then I can come back to their why, and if they're not really sure about their why or about their goals, we have that conversation. It's like, well, I'm tired of renting. Well, why are you tired of renting? I just want my own. Okay. Mm-hmm. So let's go with that. And then I have that conversation, and then I really consult them and I let them know that with how the entire process goes from beginning to end. With my experience, I've been in the mortgage industry a total of 24 years. I've been in sales the past 5 years. I've had experience in front end, back end, underwriting, processing, the entire gamut. So I take that experience and I bring that to that initial conversation and consultation, and I let them know the truth, 100%. So finding out their why and then making that roadmap and letting them know in the beginning, hey, this is what we're dealing with. You know, do you have any big ticket items is what I like to call them, any divorce, student loans, any judgments, any liens, anything that you may know about. And then we'll address them right in the beginning head on and say, you know what, it's all right. It's okay, because we're going to get this settled. We're going to get this straight. Delayed never means denied, but you found the right person to help you navigate these waters so that you can become a homeowner, so that you can become an investor, so that you can leave the legacy to your children. Because that's what we're here for. That's what Legacy Home is. That's what my whole mission is in being a loan officer anyway. You know, I could have stayed on the back end, you know, underwriting or processing, but I had too much knowledge, you know, to share, to educate, to help people become those homeowners. So that's why, you know, I'm so excited to be here with you, brother, and I'm loving it.
Right. That was so much. That was great intel, right? Because you spoke back to the why. Yeah. And I think that was huge right there. That was once again another mic drop. That's why my family on here with me, because it points back to I'm giving you back the information that you gave me about why you were trying to accomplish this.
That's right.
And so what happens a lot of times, and I think, and I'm just going to kind of paraphrase, when we have the opportunity to remind someone of the why, then when you want to quit, or it gets hard, or maybe it's a document that the underwriter may ask for, a document you may ask for, hey, let me let you know about why we're doing this. And so that's the motivation sometimes to get over that hump. So that was a really good insight there. I had a question in the chat, and I'm probably gonna kick this over to Nefta, because since you did such a phenomenal job of breaking down a few things, the question is, why is that? And this is from Miss Francine. It says, why is it that I can qualify for high rent, 2,100 plus monthly, but I cannot qualify for the same monthly payment on the mortgage? Can you give a little insight into that first, Nefta, and then on the back end of that, Ryan, I'm gonna come to you and get your insight, especially with the higher rent out in the California market. But Nefta, if you can kind of start us out with kind of giving a little insight as to why you won't qualify, why you can qualify for a high rent role, but not necessarily a mortgage that has that same payment.
I don't know. I'm not a rental agent. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't know what their criteria is. I typically understand though that I've heard you've got to make 2 or 3 times what the rent is as your gross income. Okay. I believe they do a credit check. Some places do, some places don't. Like I said, that's not my field of expertise. But if I'm just making an educated guess, I'm assuming they're literally just looking at your income and does it fit? They're not doing an analysis of what the other bills are that you're paying on a monthly basis on your credit.
Thank you.
Right? Secondly, should you, in certain states, should you, show up late after the 5th day, well, we're going to go ahead and get you on out of here, right? It's not that easy, especially after, 08 for a lender to go, we're going to start the foreclosure proceedings, right? So everything is a business at that juncture. And you're looking at, hey, you know what, we're going to have carrying costs for 12 months if we give this person this loan and they can't afford it. That's something that they have to upkeep, whether it's HOA, taxes, insurance on it, et cetera. So from the perspective of, going into a rental apartment, they may just, like I said, you meet the minimum credit score requirement and then your gross income is 3 times what the rent is. Okay, you're approved. We're looking at your overall living condition because this is a long-term play, long-term situation that we're going to look into. And then we're taking everything that's on your credit overall, and that's how we calculate debt to income ratio. So it's a different guideline and scope that they look at. That's my assumption. Again, not a rental agent. What I am, though, is a licensed mortgage banker.
Absolutely. And if they didn't know, you can point to the barcode in the top corner there next to you. And for anybody that looked and said that, Ms. Francine, who had that same question, you can tap right in with this gentleman right here and have a one-off conversation about how we can answer that question and actually get you qualified.
Hey, Todd, can I list all the states like David did? It'll probably eat up the other 15 minutes if you got nothing else to say. I gotta, no? All right, go ahead.
No. You got too many states, man. We don't want to do that. But what I want to do is Yeah, David took about 10 minutes to break down the states that he was licensed in. But what I want to do first before we move, and I'm gonna come to you, Ryan. But I want to highlight one of our other brothers, Mr. Chris Francis, that was able to join. I saw him, listening intently. But now he has a camera on, so I'm going to actually kick something to you, a question. So first, Chris, can you please let us know what states you're covering, what area that you reside in right now, how long you've been in the business, and tell the people your name, please.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. And thank you, my Legacy family, for welcoming me on the show. My name is Chris Francis. I am located in Connecticut, Hartford, Connecticut. I am licensed, not as much as Nefta, of course, but I'm right behind and David with about 16 states. I won't list them, it's fine. But the bottom line is, I enjoy this. I'm enjoying actually the show so far. And I must say, Nefta, what you did just now with explanation of the DTI, the breakdown as the qualification, that was huge. That was huge. So for the basic concept of someone who doesn't comprehend and how to comparison with the rent, it's Nefta touching it all. We're not rental experts, but the very basic principle is they qualify you on a different level. We qualify on a level whereby we're looking at every aspect of how you're going to be able to repay that loan. That's basically it. If you cannot repay the loan, that's really what it is. But people maybe are fearful of actually applying for a mortgage. How can I do it? Well, I don't think I can. Yes, I can. Maybe I can. The bottom line is you won't know unless you try.
That's great. That's good right there, Chris. The other point that you actually led me to, is when we talk about how we take an overall approach to how we look at help and qualify, right? Because we not only want to help you acquire the asset, but we want to make sure that you're in a position to retain the asset. Right. And I think that's important when we look back over the past several years with legacy home loans and the loans that we've done. We don't have too many foreclosures, if any, right? Zero foreclosures. I threw that out there as a lob for one of y'all to grab it and dunk it, but we don't have any foreclosures at Legacy Home Loans right now. Mm-hmm. Over the past, that's a clap right there. Mm-hmm. Congratulations for you guys doing your job and going above and beyond. The second thing is when it comes to a pre-approval that we've actually put into the marketplace with our partners, that we have basically a little over 93% conversion rate, almost 95% conversion rate when it comes to a pre-approval that we have issued, meaning that those people are going to get to the closing table if you get a pre-approval from any of our partners and my partners here with Legacy Home Loan. So we have the hard conversations. We look at the overall affordability of what you can do, and we're going to issue you a pre-approval accordingly. Mm-hmm. And it may not be what you want, but we're going to tell you the truth about what you need in this moment. But we'll also talk to you about strategies on how you might be able to remove some debt. Maybe it's, I think David said something about, Tamika, about high ticket items, big ticket items, and possibly refinancing those items to lower the payment. Now you put yourself in a position to qualify for a little more house. So it's really about having the knowledge and being able to be creative in the thought process to get somebody approved. And in most cases, that's the difference between, having a conversation with somebody at, big bank A or B, right? Versus somebody that cares about making sure that you are building sustainable wealth and home ownership. So Ryan, I've been picking on you for a second, brother. I want to actually kick to you because we're about to get ready to land this plane. But what I want to do here is just give you an opportunity to talk about that same scenario and how you would advise your client once again when it comes to possibly the fact that they may be paying a very high rental rate, and how that correlates to helping them actually qualify for a house.
Yes. So I have experience in leasing rentals, leasing apartments. And I know that, when I did, we only looked at your income We looked at whether you had any evictions, and that was pretty much it. And your credit score, you had to, meet a minimum credit score, so to qualify. But that was it. There's no financial advisory. There's no, helping you to, make sure that you understand what you're getting yourself into. We just, if you've met those three things, you're in. When you're buying a home, we have to look at your entire financial position. We have to make sure that, you're not only just getting into something that you can afford for maybe a year and move on to something else, which is, leases usually just a year. You have to look at your next 10, 15, 20, 30 years. Will you be able to stay and make sure that this is a place that you can, build a legacy for yourself and your family with? So, it's different. It's a totally different, idea when it comes to renting and purchasing a home.
Awesome. And before we get ready to, like I said, we're about to get ready to land this plane in a second. I want to actually stop for a quick second to any of the people that might be listening right now. Do you guys have any additional questions that we can answer before we get ready to start to sign out? Do you guys have any questions, anything that we may, something specific that we can maybe answer for you in terms of a client that you may have, a question that you may have about anything at all before we get ready to move? All right, there we go. So now that for any questions and comments on the playback, you can always contact 682-710-1101, and you can text your questions there. Again, that number is 682-710-1101. And it looks like we got a few questions. I'm looking to move to Houston from New Jersey, and my lease is up in November. So that means you are moving to New Jersey. We're licensed in New Jersey. I'm licensed in New Jersey. Janelle, you got various people here. I think we're all licensed in New Jersey. You can just click the barcode and make sure that you grab the information, and one of us will actually help you with that process. Make sure that you're ready when you make that move from Houston over to New Jersey. Thank you much, Francine, Janelle. Okay, when would be a good time to start the process? Yesterday was the good time to start the process. We need to do it today. So contact one of us. Again, you can put that information in the chat, but you also have the barcode, the QR code, to a few of my partners here that can definitely answer any questions about getting started with that loan process and helping you guide and get to that end goal. Do you guys talk pre-home buyers, young people before they're in the market so they can start preparing? Absolutely, Kenny. That question was, do we have conversations with pre-home buyers and young people so they can start to understand what they need to do in this market so they're prepared? I'll grab that question. One of the bigger things that we do is we're out in the community actually engaging with our young folk. HBCUs, we go there, we talk. I taught a class here at University of South Carolina about 2 weeks ago. So we're actually out in the community engaging with our young folks, having conversations that are meaningful, because what happens is you can actually come on to a platform and just hear content, and you will digest as much as you can based off of the level of understanding and based off of the level of questions that you can ask. What we try to do is make ourselves available for questions, so that way we repeat the things that we've said to make sure that you have an understanding of the dialogue. And if you can effectively kind of regurgitate that information back, then now we feel good about moving on to the next subject. So yes, we actually engage with our young adults and make sure that they are ready to purchase, and also understand that that you don't have to wait until you're 30 years old to buy. You can buy now and then start to build that portfolio and build some things that you can leverage. So once you get married, you're not tapping out all your resources, even for a wedding and some of those things. So you can actually use some of the assets that you've acquired during that period of time to keep going. There was another question. Kiana, can you assist anyone who is looking to relocate overseas, or can you connect someone with the resources? Kiana, that's a little loaded question. We'll talk about that offline, but yes, we can help everybody all the time. I'll say that answer. Refinancing, and David said, amen. All right, so refinancing, we're gonna touch that really quick before I kick it to you guys. Yes, we are a full service lender, meaning that we can do FHA, VA, USDA conventional, and we also help people with refinancing and taking the equity, leveraging the equity out of their home. And so not only is it just about understanding that you can do a refinance, the other step we take is we talk about, especially in this market, we talk about what we might can pay off as far as debt consolidation to free up monthly income inside your home. And now we're talking about overall savings versus you looking at an interest rate today, because some of us have hundreds of thousands of dollars of equity built in our property. But if we don't have the right conversation to realize that, hey, we might be able to stomach a little bit higher of an interest rate today because we're saving so much money by consolidating and paying off a car, credit card debt, paying off, whatever it is on that other side. And now if you're doing that, you may free up $1,000, $1,500 a month by doing that. And then that offsets any type of additional payment that you might have had to make by refinancing. I know we got a few minutes. Miss Williams, I see your hand up.
Yes, my question is, how can a person, for example, if someone is in an apartment, but they want to buy a home, how can they get out of that apartment and buy a home at the same time and say to the apartment complex, whoever it is, or the landlord, that I'm buying a home, I'm going to be leaving here? Does that count against that individual, or are there ways to handle that so that person doesn't feel the brunt and they can do what they need to do on a bigger scale, which is buy a home?
Great question. I actually want to kick that over to Chris Francis. He was a little bit late, so we picking on people when you show up late. So, Chris, with that question, can you go ahead and give us some insight on that? Please.
Absolutely, Ms. Williams. It's one of those things that it's setting the expectations, but for the most part, what we have done, what Todd touched on earlier, is that we have positioned ourselves and our clients, put our clients in a better position in terms of getting them approved by an underwriter before they actually start the process. So what that does is that gives them enough room so that when they do secure a property, they'll be able to advise their landlord. They could do 30 or 60 days. I think for the most part, then again, I shouldn't say that. Some rental institutions are 30 or 60 days notice. So if they start the process soon enough, they secure a property, they'll have enough time to say to the landlord, if it's 30 days, which I think that's a general consensus is 30 days, they'll be able to advise their landlord that I will be moving on November the 15th. So they give them a 30-day notice because they've already gotten an approval. So, and then to piggyback on the approval process, what I often say to clients is that you never give notice to your landlord until you have an approval, because anything can change. You don't just start looking for a home and tell your landlord, I'm moving next month. No, you do not do that. That's like putting the cart before the horse. So we advise our clients to make sure you have an approval first, then you tell your landlord, then you start your preparation so that they can find another tenant to occupy the property.
Okay. And so that does not count against the renter?
Not at all. Not at all. If anything, sometimes it helps when they're paying rent through a management company, because if they're credit worthy, if they're not fully, I wouldn't 100% credit worthy, we can also take into account their rental payment history that they have been paying on time, and the management company will be able to confirm that. And we can use that to also build their credit. So that's something that the general public don't know. And that's huge, huge, huge. That, individuals, if you're not paying your rent on time, please do. Right. It could save you.
Don't put the cart before the horse and get put out before you close.
Do not.
That was great. So we got just a few more seconds and we got to actually get out of here. So I want to kick to Tamika first. Any last words for the people as we sign out?
Yeah. Give us a call. We here at Legacy. We are here to help. We're here to help guide you through the home buying process and beyond. Scan our beautiful codes here, and all of us in different states around the U.S. will gladly help you.
All right. Same with you, Chris. Any parting words?
Absolutely. First and foremost, we have to thank our host, Ms. Williams. And absolutely. And then we thank our audience for joining us. It's not easy buying a home. It's not easy doing it alone. We're saying back in Jamaica, Nefta always have to pick on you because we're relatable. I often say one hand cannot clap. You do need two, but more often than not, you know, if you make enough income, you live within your means, you can do this. So let's use a slogan as our former president would say, can we do this? Yes, we can.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Okay.
And Chris is long-winded, so you guys are just gonna have to wave because we gotta sign out. So Nefta, Ryan, David, Tamika, appreciate you guys. And once again, this is a closing segment. Thank you for tuning in to Reclaiming the Legacy. I'm your host, T-Ty Simon. This is our partners here at Legacy Home Loans. We thank you so much. Ms. Williams, take us home.
All right. So much. And once again, a phenomenal show. This is so informative. It is so exciting. And it is so incredible to have all of you on. Thank you so very, very much. You have inspired everyone. Folks are going out buying homes right now. Your phones are going to be ringing off the hook. Thank you for joining us. This is the Intentional Talk Radio Network, and you have been listening to T. Todd Simon on the East Coast in Carolina, South Carolina, closing the gap with legacy, creating that generational wealth. This is the place you really want to be. Have a good evening, everybody. All of you that are on the board, thank you for joining us. We want to see you back here next week. Same time, same place, same Batcave. We'll talk with you then. Have a good evening and be safe out there. And wear your mask. It ain't over.
Great point.
Take care, everybody. Take care. See you then.
Thank you.
Take care. Remember, you can send your questions and your comments to 682-710-1101. That's 682-710-1101.